structuring improvs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're
Yes.
right now talking about something we observe,
Yeah.
but for structuring improvs. And when, anyway. So let me talk about why this is important also for effort. Do you, now Zack does not have an effort background, but do you have an effort background? Okay.
Speaking of which, does anyone have a book recommendation or some sort of text so that for something that explains exactly?
My book.
So the motif book would apply for
Motif.
LabanWriter and so on.
Yes.
Okay.
For understanding what
Effort, shape.
effort and shape variables are. Can we hold
Yeah,
that though?
let's
Because I
continue.
feel pressed. But
I'll use that.
that's one thing, and I'm sure there are other suggestions that people can give to you.
Okay.
Or
Well, I have your book, so I
take
guess
the
I'll
online
use
course,
that.
and you will get. Anyway, another
Shelley, can
topic.
Can I interrupt you? for a
Yes.
moment? We can move the iPad thing to the end, because this theory thing, this discussion that we're having, I think is really important. So I don't want you to feel pressed. I mean, I really can summarize the project in 5 minutes. So I'm happy to put that towards the end. I don't want to impede on your.
But I also
on the
want to
agenda,
make
but-
sure that Zack has it, because his topic, I'm fascinated.
Yeah, so
by
I'm happy
too.
to be shuttled off to the end. That's
Okay, but I
totally
do
fine.
want to give us some time, and anyway.
I just wanted to put that out there because I didn't want you
Great.
to feel pressed for.
You know
getting
what?
that.
Actually, probably you should go first. Then they can have all the time to discuss, and then they don't need to worry about. You know, if it's 5 minutes.
Let's finish
After
with this,
yours,
and then,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then,
Let's keep
and then
going.
we'll go to
Yeah.
that's a good. Yeah, that's true, because his is a deep thing, and we'll probably. Good, May. All right. So effort. Actually, effort was the beginning reason that we started talking about this, and I will tell you, if any of you know the name Martha Davis. Do you know Martha? Well, I work with Martha a lot when in projects and things, and this issue about looking thematically as opposed to looking for moment to moment changes is what she was really interested in a way to notate, because it was important for her work as a nonverbal notator. So when in the past, or in those early days, we talked about effort, they talk about it again in two ways. They say, even with a single movement like this, all right, get mini, this movement is about, we're going to analyze this. When they would talk about it, say, I'm going to try to, okay, I'm going to do a movement then that I'm going to tell you that it's about pinpointing in space. It's called direct effort, okay? Pinpointing in space. Right? Now, I didn't really do the pinpointing. I mean, I don't know if I accomplished this. What I was trying to do is I didn't really do the pinpointing until the very end. Okay? Also, okay, I'm going to do it again. Okay? I'm going to say to you that not only is it about pinpointing in space, but it's about pinpointing with pressure. Or I'm going to say with quickness. Okay? All right? But that's what I want you to notice. That's what I want to talk about. But when they started to notate it, again, people would do is they'd say, yes, but the movement begins with free flow and something else, and then it becomes bound, and then it becomes whatever. Da 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 da. Or even more importantly, all right, again, I'm going to do this movement, this series of movements, and I want you to notice it's about free flow and lightness. Not that I'm always doing that, right? But it's about those two things.
Though there was a bit of indirectness.
There's indirectness. I'm sure if you broke it down, and your Atlantic could go 10, which is useful for certain applications. But for my application as a dancer, I don't think that way. I think, All right. So, we have two things that we're trying to be thematic about. one thing that we're trying to be thematic about is to say over time, just like we did before, over time, what I want you to notice is even though at this moment I'm doing this and I'm being light, but then I'm being something else, then I'm being something else. But overall, what I want you to notice is light. But also, the other issue is that if you look at it literally, that at each given moment, they're going to be, the lightness doesn't appear by itself. It appears in combination with other things. So maybe there's sustainment, and maybe there's lightness in indirectness, and maybe there's lightness and direct, you know, and whatever it is, lightness and quickness. But I want you to say, not only am I going to say that over time there's just lightness, but that I just want to ferret out the lightness. I don't want to tell you what else it appears with, the combinations that it's appearing with. So when I put,
Down over here.
right, when I put, I can, if, when I put a effort symbol in a theme bow, I'm saying to you, over time, this is what occurs, and this may occur in combination with other things, but that's not relevant.
So it
What's
doesn't
relevant,
preclude the other things.
it does not preclude them. In fact, lightness doesn't usually, it says what is the dominant quality,
The main
that
event
the main thing that occurs,
that this is all about.
right, as opposed to, now that, I don't like the way that this is written, but for better or for worse, at this point, you know, maybe this is the way that people write literally, you know, maybe it was, I don't know what I did, but I'm just gonna write that I do this, and then I do that. You see what I'm saying? I'm saying, literally, first be light and sustain, then be light and direct, then be this and that. So it's two things, and this gives us an opportunity to not only talk about what occurs over time, but to talk about, not having to talk about the combinations, which we may want to talk about sometimes, but a lot of times we may want to just say, now I'm going to give you an example. Here is a sequence.
Enter. Just press enter. And then again. Yeah.
This is,
It's for your own protection.
can't you not do that?
Yeah, that's Swan
Or
Lake.
not be long-winded or whatever. All right.
Kitty does Swan Lake Act too.
All right, here are these guys, some ethnic.
Very nice.
In here, in terms of what the effort stuff is, right?
It's about strong weight.
That's what
Bound.
I would, yes, that's what I said. But it could be, you know, there was, somebody might say, you know what was the highlights of this for me was that sometimes they were being direct, or that they were being sudden, or they were being sudden direct. It could be that the theme, let me say that the theme could be about,
Punch.
there you go, strong,
Yeah.
strong, direct, and sudden. it could be this combination is what's the, they weren't always being strong and
No, but a
right,
lot-
and I'm gonna add something else, and that is, I'm gonna put a thing here, that means be still at certain times, maintaining the aliveness of it. You know, so maybe it could be this, or, but you see, right? Whereas if I did not have the theme bow, I'd have to write, ba, 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 ba. And if I really want it, could be each one of those arm movements has within it. All right, so that's, you got it? Now, again, to me this is really important because it's, for my application, I want to tell you the way I'm thinking about the movie. That's my application. Somebody like Marion North, who was trying to do all this analysis of babies and all this kind of stuff, she wanted to be very micro. I used to talk about this as being microscopic and macroscopic perceptions, you know. At LIMS, they started using that terminology. But I started it because it wasn't an idea that we actually do these two ways of observing are different and both needed, and we need. All right, so I'm thinking, is my time up?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so let me just say one thing, and then I'm going to quit. So here, for example, here is, you could start the other way, and I made a dance. And I said, I want the first part of the dance to be about moving one arm or both arms. Okay? Now the second part of the dance is going to be about moving your head. And the third part of the dance is going to be about moving the arms, moving an arm followed by a head. That's the way I do that, is by, there are refinements of it. Okay? Yeah, that says do this followed by this. So here's this, the theme is here, 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 here. No, here, here, whatever. But you see how it becomes the structure of a dance. Okay? Good.
Thank you.
Yes. Here's, let me give it, on the back of this are some reading studies that show you a way of combining the theme bow with other, so you can combine the minute by minute perception with a thematic
Now,
perception.
in the first, in A, the symbol after the arms is.
Make any shape.
Okay.
That's an LN symbol that Anne uses. Is this? I think
It's the diamond shape,
The diamond is.
and then
It's
it's a
this.
shape.
I don't know if it's in the LN, but it's in.
It is in
space.
LN.
The diamond is always space.
Mhm.
Well, this is a symbol for shape. So if I do this, I mean make this shape. Or if I do this, it means do this. Okay? If you do this, it means do any shape. So triplet making shapes.
Yeah, so in LN, the applications usually how it uses this way. You break it into this.
But what is the difference between?
That's making a design. That's
Oh,
different.
that's design drawing.
oh,
But
That's
what about
design
this?
drawing.
What you just showed was this being the same as that.
No,
Widening.
well, the
Well, it
widening
could
is
be.
just only for.
This is making a V. I'm making a V shape.
Oh, I thought it was a widening.
No, I'm saying make a V shape. Make a round shape.
I see.
It's right. As opposed to what May did was draw a circle.
Right.
You know, pinwheel ball twist. Well, it's another way of writing the idea of shapes. Those shapes, pinwheel ball twists. Okay, so now definitely let's end. And go now we're going to switch gears and talk with Hannah. Let us know about, Hannah's going to tell us about
About this app that we are making for iPad. We have a grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities at Reed College to essentially port LabanWriter to iPad and make an iPad-specific app for the Laban systems. So we'll be able to do Ellen, Motif. We're also inputting a lot of the LOD symbols. So essentially all the symbols that are currently in LabanWriter will be in this app. And currently I'm working with David Rowley, who you all know as the LabanWriter, the most recent LabanWriter programmer. And the project has been in 2 stages. The first stage has been to make a reader, and that's currently what we're finishing up. David is importing all of the symbols, which is a much longer and more difficult process, I think, than we had anticipated for the. Yes.
So the LabanWriter is the one that Sheila originally developed, but just kind of migrated to the iPad.
What is that, Laban Reader?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're not. We didn't migrate LabanWriter. We're essentially just making LabanWriter on the iPad. But in order to make the app write, first we had to make it read.
I see.
So I guess in a way it's similar to LabanWriter. I mean, we haven't put in all the things where you can like make the symbols go away to, you know, you can like remove the arms, so you just focus on the support. We didn't end up doing that, but the first step was to get the iPad to read existing scores. So we're finishing up that. There are still a couple of little tweaks. For some reason, floor plans, the pins and floor plans are not showing up. But yeah.
So I don't know what you mean by the LabanWriter was a software that allows you to eliminate or
just to look at, for example, if you are just looking at the steps, then the LabanWriter allow you to not looking at the other stuff on the staff, but looking just focus.
Right, to just keep the steps. But you're saying that this, something about it can look at scores and...
Yeah, okay, so what the app will essentially be LabanWriter on the iPad. That's what it will be. And you'll be able to, everything that you do with a mouse on LabanWriter will be with your finger on the iPad, since it's the touch technology.
Okay.
And so, I mean, ideally, the idea is so that you can take this portable mobile technology anywhere. So in the studio, when you're reading through a score, you don't have to have pages to flip through, but you've got it on this small little device. You can zoom in to see what a symbol is, because so often on the bound scores, yeah.
So your what you're saying is the existing score that already transcribed in LabanWriter that you will be able to read on the iPad and then flip through them.
Yes, so that's the one side of it, that you'll be able to read existing scores. And so I think this actually, which I'm excited to talk about, probably more of a pack type thing, but this idea of what to do with scores that are here at the DNB, I mean, that has larger implications, I think. But yes, so you'll be able to both read existing scores and then also create scores. And the idea is that this app will continue to talk to LabanWriter, so that on the one hand, so of the various functions, on the one hand you'll be able to read existing LabanWriter scores. The app will be able to read those so that you can import them into the iPad and read them. And there's a little library. Similarly, if you're familiar with like Goodreader or iAnnotate or Pages or any of the existing iPad programs.
I don't know about
these are all existing iPad programs where you can have multiple files. And so the app will have a way of organizing all of your files so that you can have more than one score sort of in your library. So that I'm reading, you know, B.B. Miller's Prey. Okay, now I want to read La Cachucha. And it's all, you can just like files. You
It's like, the bookshelf, and, you know, it's all in your library. Then you have, you know, different books on the iPad.
Okay.
And then there's different scores on the iPad.
Oh, I see. So it just allows you to, and because you have to read them, so you're going to read them using the program, the LabanWriter program.
Right. And yeah,
then it
and
would
you can
allow you to.
yeah, and you can
Okay.
scroll through the pages. I mean, just like you had a big computer in your hand. You know, you can read through just like you would on LabanWriter,
Okay.
except it'll be in the palm of your hand.
Okay, I see. Well,
Mhm.
wow. That
But
Yeah.
then does
And
it
you'll be able to zoom
does
in.
it allow you to change
Well, this is where we're going. Yeah.
To
so
what?
then
to change the
scores.
content of the score?
LabanWriter allows you to make changes in
Yes.
the score.
But then
And
so
that's stage 2. Stage 1, you get to read it.
So this is, at this point, it's about making scores that are now been written available for reading on the iPad, but the writing part of it is another. So using LabanWriter to write on an iPad is something that is also going to be available.
Yeah. Mhm.
So why wouldn't you be able to take the notation of, you know, somebody's created some notation and then it's on the iPad, and I just pull out that symbol and replace it with another symbol.
Well, so once this thing really, once it is done, we'll have to really talk about how to lock a score, so that let's say that I am reading a score, not something that not necessarily something that we do in class, where students can make a quick motif, or they can notate their work and they can send to someone else. But if I'm talking about maybe someday down the road when I can rent my scores, if I'm directing work from score, and instead of the DNB having to send the paper copy through the mail, if they can send the digital copy, we'll have to talk about how to lock a score so that you can't change it.
But that's
right?
not really, to me, that's not really a major issue.
Sure. Well,
because
Well-
anybody can do anything to any, you
As
could,
long as it's not uploaded and changed, and
It's not like
disseminated.
it's so open out there, so you can
Of
free
course,
to change it.
Of course, if somebody Xeroxes a score and writes their notes on the
I mean,
side,
Yeah, then they
can
use
do
the
that.
whiteout. Yeah,
to-
yeah.
to-
But
folk,
but the real generative thing I think with this app is being able to edit and to write.
Yeah.
So that you can be in the studio with this thing, and you can. There's the physical act of really
Yeah.
being able to feel how long a symbol is. Right, when we talk about symbols having a relationship to time,
Mhm.
that students can really feel. That this symbol is this long,
Right.
and that they can, in the studio, make quick motifs and share
Right.
it with each other, or that, as a researcher, you can take it into the field, into the studio,
Right.
and then you can feed it right back into LabanWriter. So it eliminates the pen and paper step.
Yeah.
And we're playing with different ways of how to do this, so that, will it always be, or I guess the question that David and I have been talking about is how detailed is the editor going to get? And we've come to the conclusion, at least for right now with this first version, and depending on, with this first version, that you still will need LabanWriter as a companion, so that when you go into the field, you can do so much, but ultimately, if you want to do the teeny tiny, real nitty gritty detail, if you have the patience to zoom in and to do this, you will be able to do it, but you also can then shoot it back to your computer and get into the nitty gritties with LabanWriter. I mean, for as long as LabanWriter can be read on the Mac systems, because as the Mac systems get more and more, LabanWriter gets sort of more and more long in the tooth, as David said the other day. So
Say that again, does this have to do with the issue of there's such a desire to have LabanWriter translated so that you can use it on PC? Or is this a different issue?
Well, one of the things that we did talk about when we were writing the NEH grant was, is this a Mac-only thing, or is this
Right.
going to be compatible across platforms?
Right.
And it came down to a funding issue in
Okay.
terms of the amount of work that would go into that kind of project. So ultimately, Reed is really interested in having this app read across platforms, especially now that there are and we wrote this grant about 2 years ago, so now that
Yeah.
there's this proliferation of non-Mac tablets out there, it's
Exactly.
definitely something that we need to take into consideration, and it's just another round of funding. I mean, really,
Right.
that's what it is.
It's not.
So,
So the issue is
Yeah.
not the difficulty of doing it. It's the time involved. I mean, it's not that it's a big doability. You can address it. Zack is a computer expert too. He worked for Microsoft.
Great.
But
I work
Yeah.
for not Microsoft.
Google.
Google.
But anyway, I have a question that popped when you were first starting. You were talking about LOD symbols. And I'm just curious what you mean by that, because as I see it or understand it, and the symbols in your move are that LOD, that language of dance, is a way of applying symbols that are a part of this overall thing we call, this is the paradigm. I'm curious about the paradigm you're using.
Oh yeah, and I have a reason for it, so I can.
Okay, well that's what I'm.
It really, David and I had a meeting, and there were some symbols that he said, what are these? And I looked at those and I said, I'm not familiar with those. And they weren't in the Laban Notation glossary. And I said, I wonder if they're in your move. And indeed they were. And so that's, I mean, literally for, like the curved path, you know, the path with the curved on each end with the arrow at the end of the things, that's not in the Hutchin, that's not in the Laban Notation, that's in the Your Move book.
So you are what you're doing, in my opinion, and which is fine, but that as equate, instead of using the term or the idea of the term motif notation, you're using the term LOD, language of dance notation, as another word for motif notation.
Oh, sure. I'm happy to say motif notation. I mean, it's not I'm not wed to either term. It's just literally that's the book where I found the answer for what to call this symbol when David needed to enter it into the program.
I mean, I guess there would be arguments for, you know, on both sides of the thing. But the reason this is of interest to me and of concern to me is people also start to talk about the LMA symbols, you know, and the LOD and
what happens is
it becomes this, and then people, and then there are
other
all
languages.
sorts of psychological things and practical things. So we had a very interesting discussion about this on the Theory Bulletin Board a number of years ago, and it's kind of an ongoing thing. And at the Bureau, at least in terms of Theory Bulletin Board, we kind of settled on the paradigm that we have this, and by the way, that Anne liked. But you have to change?